when I started with you, I had a business that was doing about 150,000, but the nursing business is doing over 200,000 a year. So I'm up to about 300, 350.
That's exceptional. To go from 150,000 to 350,000 in one business is really something. Welcome, high-performing entrepreneurs and business owners. Do you suffer from shiny object syndrome? Do you often feel scattered and distracted, making it hard to implement your plan with all the ideas and strategies coming at you? Do you often wonder if you have the right goals and plan? Welcome to Extraordinary Focus with David Wood, where we help you achieve way more in less time. Get the laser focus you need so you can double your business, double your impact in the world, and be an even more extraordinary entrepreneur and human. Let's dive in and stay tuned at the end for your gift. Welcome, guys, to another exciting episode. I say that every time, but why not do exciting episodes over boring episodes? I'm joined with client and rock star physiotherapist, Ben Leyson. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thanks, David. I'm excited to be here.
Right on.
For your podcast.
Say that again?
I'm excited to be here after listening to all your podcasts.
Right. You have listened to every episode of the Tough Conversations podcast, so I think it's fitting now that you're on the podcast. I don't know if I'm going to have this be on Tough Conversations or Extraordinary Focus yet, but how fitting that the guys listening to every episode should be helping to make one. And if you're watching the video, listeners and viewers, Ben looks red for a reason. He wasn't out in the sun too long. Although Australia does have a hole in the ozone layer, he is using a therapy light, a red lamp, to simulate the sunrise in the morning so that he doesn't assault himself with blue light. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's correct. And it's set circadian rhythm so you can go to sleep better at night time as well. Yeah.
Ben is quite the hippie in some ways, aren't we all? And he's also someone who I believe is in touch not just with some of the spiritual dimensions, but also the practical dimensions of this world, which allow us to have success with things like business and money. So my intention here is to dig into a little bit into your coaching experience and work out like why you wanted coaching, what you produced in your business, and what you learned. And my aim is twofold. Main one is I want listeners to pick up a couple of things that they can use and apply right now that's going to help their work and their life. And two, if someone's been thinking, I wonder if I should be working with a coach, this might tip them over the edge and say, yeah, I want to give that a whirl too. So, Ben, could you start us off with what is your business? You did have one business when we started. Now you have two. In a nutshell, what is it? How are you helping people?
So I have a physio business that is in a CrossFit gym, and it focuses on serving, I guess, active people in my area that are reasonably health conscious. And during that period, I had the opportunity to start a second business with my partner, who's a nurse, and that's nursing for people with disabilities. So that's sort of nursing in people's homes, and we were sort of the first one to start up in the area using some specific funding, and that one's taken off actually more than my physio business. So now I'm sort of a director of both, and sort of spend half my time on each and support my partner as well in her role.
And should we give her a name?
Yeah, Stephanie.
Stephanie, right. Okay, so your partner, so you started with physiotherapy and you building that, and that seemed to be going quite well, and then you had an idea for another business, and you've started that, and that's already taking off perhaps better than the first one. That sounds exciting. What position were you in when you first, how did you first find out about me and coaching, and what were you going through that had you say, I want coaching?
So I think I was about 6 months into my business that I started, and I'd already met a few people and read a few books that planted the idea of coaching in my head as a good idea. And I ran into you on a Mike McAlevitt's podcast because I've read some of his books. And
Profit First.
profit first, and I think I can't remember if I'd read another one by then. And the things you were saying about tough conversations really resonated with me. In particular, the way I was brought up to not talk about those things and to bottle everything down, and then how all that relates to business, and how I can be a better person using those conversations. So that then led me to your podcast, and I listened to all of that, and that was pretty I think you're a fantastic podcaster, and all of those topics I could see how they tied into how I could run my business and where I wanted to be, and that's what led to me reaching out.
I tell you what I find fascinating about that is I think for most humans, and including my brain a lot of the time, we don't see a direct link between some of what people call the softer skills of tough conversations and business success. So I understand that can be a tenuous link, but for you, it seems like you saw the application. You saw, oh, wait a minute, if I get better at the awkward conversations and the tough conversations in my life, if I get better at expressing myself, asking for what I want, saying no to what I don't want, then business is going to be better, as well as me enjoying my life more. So I think, in my opinion, that speaks to your spiritual intelligence, that you're like, oh, yeah, I want to learn more about this stuff, which will help me in business.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I was already in a bit of a spiritual development journey.
Right.
And that stuff was something I realized I was missing. So you can, work on yourself all you want, but unless you're having those conversations, I felt like you can be in a bit of a loop until you really start pushing your boundaries with that type of stuff.
Yeah, that looping thing has been big for me recently. I've had a couple of really tough situations at home, and the brain just can loop and loop and loop and loop and stress and worry, and it can impact sleep. And anyone who says tough conversations is a soft skill has never had one. They can be absolutely life-changing. If you do one right, do it well, things can go so well. If you don't do it well, you can have a lot of drama in your life, and you can lose staff, you can lose customers, you can find yourself in litigation. There's all sorts of things that can happen. What were you able to, how long have we been working together now? I'm going to guess about a year, but how long would you say it is?
About 12 months, I think.
About 12 months. So, for the left brain and all the listeners, what results were you able to produce over that time? I want to know both results and learnings, and they don't have to be separate. We could weave them in together.
Yeah. So I'll just start with business results. So when I started with you, I had a business that was doing about 150,000, and then if I look at where I am now, just purely on grossing, with my physio business, it has actually stayed about the same, maybe even dropped about 10,000-20,000, but the nursing business is doing over 200,000 a year. So I'm up to about 300-350 grossing, and we have obviously my partner who's an employee, and we have another employee about to start next week probably. So.
Well, I want to acknowledge you. I think that's exceptional. To go from 150,000 to 350,000 in one business is really something. To do that in 12 months, it's possible. It doesn't happen very often, but to do that by creating another business and have that already be generating so much revenue, I think is really an amazing feat. So well done on that.
Thank you. And then, so that's the business revenue. And then I think my biggest win, I was thinking about this last night, is being able to run a relationship with Steph, run a business with my partner, Steph, and improve our relationship at the same time.
And what has happened in your relationship? How would you describe the change, if there's been one?
We're communicating a lot better, and our intimacy's improved. Getting to know each other even more because we're working as business partners, and that brings up stuff all the time, but then we get to work through it. Where, yeah, and just starting to push the boundaries more with, I guess, even sexuality and how that even applies to your workplace when it's with your partner.
Right. One thing I've appreciated about you is you've tapped into different parts of my brain and experience I don't normally get to bring to coaching. So you're not just like, all right, I want to talk about profit, I want to talk about revenue, I want to talk about marketing. These are very common topics that I deal with. But you might, who knows what you're going to send one day. You might be like, hey, I want to know about leadership this time, or I want to talk about animating the masculine energy and feminine polarity, and how could that work? And then next time it could be about boundaries in the workplace, like how raw and vulnerable should I get with an employee, which is an amazing question. So that's one thing several things that I've enjoyed about you.
What was your favorite question?
I don't think I'd have to remember them all to remember my favorite. One that stood out to me was looking for practical exercises that men could do together to get in the masculine, and another one was practical exercises that you could do so that when you come home you're more in your masculine than your feminine. Particularly being a physiotherapist, you had the awareness to realize, it's quite a feminine practice in many ways, nurturing, nourishing, mother energy. And then you didn't want to always be in that when you're with your partner. You want to be able to bring something else. So I like the awareness, firstly, to realize, hey, I'm not doing this, and then to ask, how do I do this? And I remember, I think we came up with some, I remember something about you being in a car a lot. I remember you had to be practical about things that you could do so you walk into the house energetically prepped.
So I ended up, I think the ideas were cold showers, even just push-ups, pushing against Steph. And I ended up doing breath work in the car on the way home.
Right.
That was the most convenient. I couldn't commit to a cold shower when I got home. That was just too much.
Yeah. And I think we might have also talked about practices that she could do so that she could be more in a feminine. And I want to make the point for listeners, it doesn't mean that if you're a man you should be in your masculine, or if you're a woman you should be in your masculine or your feminine. It's just that sometimes it can be fun in relationship to animate certain polarities. You might want to have a date where the guy is in his feminine, receiving more and dancing and flowing, and the woman wants to be more directional with the masculine energy. All right, so we got the business, and I'm going to pause so I can cough. Okay, there's a quick mute there. So the business went from 150,000. You got a second business. Now the revenue total is up around 350,000. The relationship with Steph has improved. Greater communication, more intimacy. Anything else that comes to mind that's happened over this 12 months?
So I think I've had ongoing personal development as well. So from where I was a year ago, I wasn't really aware of masculine, feminine, sexual polarity, and the importance of doing men's work, and how important all of that side of being a human is for me. And that's been the other biggest change. So I'm still doing, some journey work with Brandon Bays and other self-development courses, but I think the men's work was a big tipping point for me as well. And a lot of that came from discussions with you, to encourage. You didn't necessarily tell me to do it, but encouraged me to do it by sharing your own experiences.
Right. Yeah, as you say that, I got the picture of jumping in the ditch with you. It's not really I'm going to stand up here and tell you how to get out of the ditch. It's like, no,
Yeah.
I'm living life and I'm learning every day too. Here's what I've found. If that's helpful, use it. But that feels like more my style.
And it's funny how the more I do the men's work, then it improves my business as well, because I'm able to communicate a lot better and a lot more openly. And I
Oh,
think the other thing that you rubbed off on me is your sentence, I'm going to do a reveal or a share. So I found I seem to use that in my practice a lot as well. And people seem to really like that because it's a really safe way of being vulnerable and just opening the doors to interesting conversations.
well, that's so we're not going to get into too much content on this call, but I can't help but double click on that. It sounds like you got one example of how to set context so that people understand what's coming. Often what we do in relationship is in relationship with anybody, is we just do things. We just say things. We just do things. And in our mind, we know what we're trying to do. But the other person has got to take a few seconds or a few minutes to work out what we're doing. Someone might launch into a story and not tell me where they're going or why I'm listening. And I'm like, what the hell are we doing? Or someone might start sharing something really personal and I might be like, wait, did we take a left turn? What happened? I remember when I was first coming to the US, I would speak with a very broad Australian accent. People could not understand a word. But once they knew I had an Australian accent, they could understand everything because the brain was ready. So what you did is you took an example of context. Hey, I think I'd like to share something a little vulnerable. I'd like to reveal something, so I can feel more connected to you. Is that okay? Then if they say yes, it's on for young and old, as we say in Australia. I don't get to say that very much over here in the US. On for young and old.
I haven't heard that saying in a while. It's been
Right. Yeah, you're home and hosed. So, yeah, context is just massive, and I don't think the training ever ends. I'm still learning how to set context properly so that people can receive what's coming. Any other learnings come to mind? Any other big ones that you're like, oh, so glad I learned that for either business or work?
There's a few. I'm just trying to think of another business one for you. I think my biggest learning for business was being vulnerable with clients rather than thinking I have to be. I found I was becoming more and more myself as well when I was showing up to business, which is really important. And just realizing that it's just people, not business. So just be vulnerable and nothing can really go wrong if you're sitting in that space, I think.
I found myself taking a deep breath as you said that. Like, I can't imagine anything I'd rather hear more from a client than I found myself being more me.
In business, yeah.
Yeah. And you and we have something in common, that we're both men who grew up in Australia, which, for any human growing up on this planet, there's a lot of training and negating our full self-expression. For men in particular, being vulnerable is a no-no. And then in Australia, it's like, you don't have, man up. Stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about. That wasn't a thing. And it was even, I believe that if I was crying, no one would like me and I wasn't being a man. And so I've been on quite the journey of breaking that down and learning how to welcome tears. And it can be a wonderful thing. So it's been such a privilege to get someone as aware and already developed when we started coaching as you. Often with clients, there might be more of a focus on the business side and direct stuff that's going to bring in cash. And while that's fun, it's nowhere near as gratifying as seeing someone learn something that's going to change their entire life, not just their business, but for the rest of their life, it's something they can apply. So I got a happy smile on my face right now.
I just remembered the other funny thing with business was it seemed every goal I wrote down kept coming true, even though I didn't necessarily know the path.
Can you say that again? I missed the context.
Most of my business goals that I wrote down would come true, even though I wouldn't know the exact path.
Right.
I found that when I try and overanalyze and overplan things, I then might have focus in the wrong area and miss the thing that could actually help me achieve the goal. So an example is, which is something I realized along the way, because I've tried setting goals and mini goals before, the steps, but I find I'm better if I just write it down and put the intention out and try and let things happen. And so, I remember writing down just a goal of getting to 20,000 in revenue in a specific month. And in that month, both Steph and I were away for a week. So we actually had 3 weeks rather than 4 weeks to do a billings record. And I didn't think it would be possible, but it somehow happened. And then that was a bit of a moment where I started to realize that just writing them down and setting the true intention is sometimes enough for me.
I love that. There's an improv troupe that I'm rehearsing with right now, and the director talks about something called soft focus, meaning you don't always want to just look directly at something and miss everything else that's going around. You want to have soft focus and kind of absorb the whole room. And it occurs to me that level 1 might be, I have no intention, no goals. And that's a good time to go to a coach. Level 2 could be, I'm going to set very specific goals. I'm going to plan it all out. I'll have 3-month goals. I'll have 7-day goals, and I'll have a goal for tomorrow, which works really well for a lot of people. And this other level you're talking about could be another level where it's like, I will set the intention and that will be clear, and I'm open to how the universe wants to bring that. Yeah, and I like that a lot. I've been shying away recently from the weekly plans and the 3-month plans, and I have some post-it notes down on my desk that I don't actually look at, but I do have a sense of what I want. I'm clear on that, and I have written some of that down. And then, hey, I just decided to get into acting, and then boom, now I'm playing the lead in a play. I didn't have a massive plan. I just started telling people, and someone said, "Come to this audition with me." I said, "Okay." So we don't have to know. Ben, how can people get in touch with you if they wanted to get some great physiotherapy or connect with you in any way?
So I have Instagram, just Ben's Physiotherapy. And also if you head to my website, ben@bensphysiotherapy.com, will give you plenty of information about me as well.
So Ben's Physiotherapy is your Instagram handle.
Yeah.
And then bensphysiotherapy.com is your website.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, fantastic. And it seems like you just gave us your email as well, which is ben@bensphysiotherapy.com.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Anything else you want to say before we close out this episode? Oh, I do have a question. But go ahead. It seems like you're thinking about something.
No, I did write down something. I'm just going to read it because it's not coming to my mind. Yeah, I wanted to describe how I felt having you as a coach.
Oh.
And I thought that would be helpful for other people. So I described it as I felt like I had an objective, wise, open, non-judgmental, helpful friend.
An objective, wise, open, non-judgmental, helpful friend.
Helpful friend.
Wow. Thank you. That that feels really good. I think that's a great place to leave it. Listeners, you know how to get in touch with Ben. If something sparked something for you here and you're interested in coaching with me, you can go to focus.ceo and request a session. And Ben, thanks for coming on the show. It's been such a joy knowing you, and I definitely want to keep in touch. You've been listening to Extraordinary Focus with David Wood. Now, to achieve way more in less time, to double your business and your impact in the world, and to be an even more extraordinary entrepreneur and human, make sure you get your gift basket. It includes a cheat sheet to double your focus, a short video to implement the steps, and a free focus audit to identify the #1 focus leak in your business and how to plug it. To get all 3 of these goodies, just go to myfocusgift.com. If you've gotten value out of this episode, tell your friends. And nothing says keep up the good work, David, like a review, which helps us climb in the rankings and reach more listeners. Now, let's be extraordinary.